And we're reading just through the first few verses relating to Jesus coming into Jericho. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. Remember that little statement. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. And all the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be a guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, Look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor. And if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. Then he made this incredibly famous statement, For the Son of Man came to seek and to save that which is lost. Or as the Message version puts it, to find and restore that which is lost. So I want to look at this morning, we're talking about Jesus relating to a city. And there's some keys, I believe, and we won't get through all this, but in your life groups this coming week, we'll give you some notes to just continue to look at. This guy Zacchaeus, his encounter with Jesus on this day, in this famous city, from a Jewish perspective, a very famous city. It was the first city, of course, that the people entered the promised land. It was their first real victory. And so it had history, it had a real sense of opportunity in that sense in this particular city. But we'll look at 3 entities this morning, Jesus, Zacchaeus, and the Jericho crowd, because they all teach us something. Teach us something not of then so much as now, of how Jesus relates to people, how Jesus relates to a city, and the things that he loves to do. And so I want to quickly start with Jesus, and we're going to go quite quickly. And then I want to give you just some, I guess what I'd call some real-life Kiwi application. First thing we see about Jesus, and as I read it, I noted it, as he was on his way, he wasn't planning to stop. He just was going through, he was heading through, but he noticed something. He noticed not the crowd, he noticed a person called Zacchaeus, this little short guy, up a tree. Sort of weird, really, isn't it? I mean, most of us have probably noticed that. If you sort of saw some guy up a tree looking at you, it is a tad out of the ordinary. So Jesus stopped, and I guess one of the keys in Jesus' life is his ability to notice things. One of the keys, I believe, in the middle of that is that we see people based on how we see ourselves. And Jesus said to us, we love others as we love ourselves. It's very important that we keep working on who Jesus is building you to be, because out of that, he gives you eyes then to see people. And the other thing, of course, in the busyness, that we live busy lives. Busy is normal. And somehow anybody that is anybody is busy. And if you're not busy, you're probably a loser. There's something wrong with you. Is that true? No. You see, the busyness thing can rob us of opportunities. And Jesus was busy, but he was never too busy to stop and to see an opportunity. And he stayed adaptable. He looked. And then he called out to Zacchaeus. He treated him like a person, not a tax collector. Hey, tax collector, come down. Hey, Jewish middle-aged man. Hey, Jewish young man, Jewish old man. He did not call him by his culture. He did not call him by his profession. He did not call him by his age. He didn't call him by his stature. He called him by his name. He knows you by name. And the way that Jesus relates to us as people is always, while he may love a city and talk to a city as an entity, when he talks to you, he will always talk to you by name. He knows you. Before the foundation of the world, he knew all about you. He was involved when you were knitted together in your mother's womb. He says himself, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. How do I know that? Because I made you. That sense of being called by his name, by his own name, I believe is one of the triggers in Zacchaeus' life. See, Zacchaeus was known as the chief tax collector. What Zacchaeus had got himself into was really a little bit of a cartel. He was the chief tax collector, and he'd franchised the district into different areas, and he'd sold off the ability to go and collect tax. And it's not collecting tax like we know, where our taxes are collected for our government, for our nation. It wasn't for our government or our nation. It was for someone else's government and for someone else's nation that they were collecting tax. They were collecting tax for the oppressor, the one who'd come in and conquered the nation of Israel, the Roman Empire, incredibly violent, incredibly cruel. These were the taxes were being used to pay the army that controlled and manipulated and really was so cruel to the Jewish people. These were the taxes that paid the Roman soldiers that organised Jesus' death. This was the picture that Zacchaeus was a part of, and not only just a part of, but he was totally engulfed in. And when Jesus called Zacchaeus by name, he did not call him tax collector. He did not call him despised one. He did not call him manipulator. He did not call him a crook. He called him by his name, though all those other things were true. And church, as we relate and we look at other people, as we relate, we've got to look through the eyes of Jesus. Jesus does not see fault. He does not see the past. He sees people as he made them. And the beautiful thing, I believe, is as Zacchaeus had an encounter, this corrupt crook had an encounter with Jesus, something changed. And of course, the most amazing thing that Jesus said to him, really, he embraced him. He said, I want to come to your place. And I believe the key to making someone else feel special is not so much inviting them to your place as you going and hanging out in theirs. That's the way Jesus works. He came to our place called planet Earth. He didn't invite us to heaven. Hey guys, at the end of life, if you can live a good enough life on your own, if somehow you can make it, I'd love you to come on over to a place called heaven. It's a cool place. Come and hang out with me. Nah, he came to earth. He came to our place as it is. Maybe not flash, but he came. It means a lot when I believe when people come into your own turf, when they embrace you in your world. And so that's how Jesus relates to people. That's how he related to this man called Zacchaeus. But Zacchaeus, what about him, the short guy? The short guy that maybe could have been a jockey in our day. But what are the keys that really changed, really connected with Jesus? And of course, the first one we see was that spiritual hunger. He was so hungry that he pushed past the crowd. There's a woman with an issue of blood. So this biblical term, a woman that was bleeding continuously. She pushed past the crowd just to touch Jesus. There was a man who was blind from birth, and he yelled, and people said, be quiet, but he kept yelling because he was hungry, because he had a sense of spiritual hunger. I've just got to know who Jesus is. When the ability to overcome obstacles is something that we've got to give credit to a guy like Zacchaeus, to push past the stuff that he had in front of him. But really, I guess what really connects with me today is in the description of what it says about Zacchaeus. It says that he stood up. Now that's sort of humorous. He was a short guy, but he stood up and he said to Jesus, look, Lord, here and now I give half my possessions to the poor. He stood up.